Fintech Revolution. India leads the revolution with UPI and ULI. New UPI features make payment more accessible. We have the top players who decide how India will pay and also borrow in the coming years. It's the next unlock in the digital revolution. And we're going to be celebrating National Nutrition Week Day 5 right here on the show. How can you enhance your gut health? What is the gut? And how does how your gut feels relate to the rest of your body? How can your diet affect your mood? Eat smart, think sharp. With us here at TBC, we're going to bring you the deep dive on all the food you need to fuel your mental wellness. Also, it's 5th of September. Let's not forget it's Teachers' Day. We honor the teacher who transformed education, the legacy of India's philosopher and former President Dr. Sarvapalli Radak Krishnan. We also get you the philosophy behind Teachers' Day. Why exactly is it celebrated? And actor Preeti Zinta recounting her harrowing journey through IVF into finally surrogacy. She opens up about all of the challenges she dealt with, and she's told us everything. More details coming up on TBC. All right, let's start with our top story today, which is sort of putting India back in focus. India has solidified its position as a global fintech giant, leading the world when it comes to the sheer volume of UPI payments. Now, with the success of UPI, India seems to be almost on the cusp of yet another financial revolution with the introduction of ULI, or the Unified Lending Interface. This was announced by the RBI governor not very long ago. What is ULI and what are the promises it brings with it? ULI promises to make loans more accessible to millions and millions of Indians. It will democratize the credit process and it will empower businesses and individuals. At least that's the hope. Now, as we look ahead into the future of digital finance in India, we thought here on TBC it's crucial to understand the landscape in its entirety and the different innovations that are driving it. That's why today on The Breakfast Club, we're diving deep into this transformative moment in Indian fintech. And we've got some very interesting voices to speak to us on the program today. Joining us are three people who've been at the forefront of this revolution and who recently also attended the Global Fintech Fest 2024, which was the hub of all things new, all things tech and finance that's really going to unfold in the country. First up, we've got Radak Krishnan. He's the co-founder of Plutus One Fintech. His company does something very exciting. He's deeply involved in the Bharat bill payment system. His company also has partnership with major players like UPI, RuPay, etc. We also have with us Ankush Sabharwal, founder of CoRover.ai. Ankush is doing something very fascinating. His company actually is changing the game when it comes to voice-enabled UPI payments. Think about that. And Ankush will be joining us in a few minutes. We also on the screen right now have with us Gaurav Jindal. He's the MD of Quick Touch. And we'll tell you guys a little bit more about what it is that Quick Touch does, because it's an IT firm. It's focused on cyber security and also payment gateways. Remember, cyber security, this entire data system and how to protect it, that's a big question, even with the unified lending interface. We'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into this entire story right now. Let's go over to our guests. First, let's just go over to Rajat to understand. Rajat, just tell us, we want to come over to you to understand. First, let's go to basic reactions from you. Tell us what your thoughts are around this new initiative, and tell us, as someone who's very, very familiar with the entire ecosystem around payments, I just want to understand, what are the key flags and how do you see the government looking to answer each of what could be red flags, data breaches, for example, in something like this?
Super. Thanks, Toya. Well, we see this as yet another milestone in the government's plan to be able to take financial inclusion and digital financial inclusion to every last Indian. We built a lot of this is built on top of the India stack, and a lot of the work that has been done prior has been leading up to this, and I'm sure there's a lot more innovation coming in. But what they've really done at this point is to say that for most Indians, there isn't actually a heavy paper trail for a credit giver, for an issuer, to be able to assess their credit worthiness, right? When it comes to large credit, a lot of us need to have credit scores, and those credit scores are based on macro transactions like large loans that we've taken and our repayment schedules there. But the largest demand for credit is actually at sizes and from people where paper trails don't exist. Right? You can't basically judge what somebody needs if somebody's asking for, say, 5,000 rupees in credit to be able to pay for insurance right now, or to be able to take any other service, or for a farmer to be able to ask for credit during the off season when they're not getting money from their crops, or for MSMEs to unlock their invoicing value. At those points, there just isn't enough data to be able to give out credit, especially from very conservative institutions like most of our banks have been thus far. So what the ULI does is open up access to other sources of data that can help a credit issuer decide the credit worthiness of the applicant. Now, some of this could be basic stuff like GST, which has already been digitized. Some of this could be land records for farmers and other landowners. For MSMEs, this could be access to their invoicing data. And a lot of things have happened in parallel. For example, at the GFF this year, within bill payments, they announced a new category of B2B payments, which would essentially be the digitization of all payments, invoices, settlements between businesses. And having banks have accessibility, visibility to those records is huge in terms of data and their ability to then assess credit worthiness. So what's actually happening is there's a lot of work happening together, and you're going to see intersections of ULI with BBPS, now Bharat Connect, B2B. So a lot of these things are happening. Clearly, some of the flags that you spoke about would actually be, number one, what is the kind of data that is being digitized that you will have access to? Because one risk that is evident is whatever gets digitized first will start getting used first to assess credit worthiness. So is that the right data at all? Right? So GST, yes, absolutely great. You know what the business is doing, their invoicing data, that's great. But if other records are being digitized, who's being left out of the digitization? What kind of data is being digitized, made available to the issuer, to the credit issuer, to make those decisions? You don't necessarily want to introduce a systemic bias where data that's available is being used when it may not be the most relevant. So those are the kind of things that are important. A lot of work is happening even here in digitizing as many sources of data as possible. So that's great. But now it comes to how that data gets aggregated, how it gets opened up, and who makes those decisions and how. So is there a transparent decision-making process? How are the partnerships that are in place for making these decisions? All of those are going to be very, very relevant going forward.
Yeah, important points over there. And from what I'm understanding is that the idea is to make it another UPI, so it has to be on a really large scale. That means there has to be a lot of involvement even in rural spaces. That seems to be the key here, the intention with which the government is going. But let me bring in Gaurav Jindal, the MD of Quick Touch here. Gaurav, since you already deal with a lot of these small borrower loans, etc., I'm interested in understanding what does ULI then really cater to? Because there are the loans which are these very heavy duty collaterals. Is that the intention? Or are we going to look at quick and easy fixes in urban areas, which seem to be a more doable thing at the moment?
As Rajat says, I strongly believe that this ULI is going to change the lending market, I believe. See, whenever we talk about these kind of steps at the government level, we talk about going beyond the urbanization.
Okay, let me just pause there. I think there's an issue with Gaurav's line. Gaurav, we're just going to fix that and come back to you. Let me take that question to Ankush. Ankush Sabharwal, the founder of CoreRover.ai. Ankush, hi, good morning. Before you came in, we were just trying to understand what is this revolutionary thing that you're doing. UPI payments on a call, like on an audio. I can say, hey, hello, I need to send $100 to Toya, and it'll just go like that. It sounds amazing, but also very scary. What exactly is happening?
No, see, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. So I think we should not be surprised. I think this is a natural way, right? So when we can talk, why not other things? talk, right? Because that's natural. But what has happened so far, we technologists thought giving a UI where there are labels and the text fields, that is a natural way to build software, but that was not. Yes, we built because the voice technology was not that good earlier. And see, if you see, for technologists, the user experience should look good, right? That's what we have believed in. And then we learned, hey, the user experience is not just about looking good, it's about being easy. It should be easy to use. But easy is very, very subjective. Whatever is easy for me might not be easy for my parents, might not be easy for my child. But then what kind of user experience we are looking for? I think we should always go towards natural basics, and the voice is always basic and natural. And in fact, now we are talking about voice first. I think soon it will be video first. But let's stay voice first. Yeah, I think that's natural. It's not scary. Of course, the PIN, we are not bypassing the PIN authentication. That's still there. But yes, it's now
Good to know.
we can do the payments by voice.
Okay. Let me just ask, thank you Ankush for explaining that. Let me just ask Rajat, let's go back to him for a second. Rajat, I want to ask you a bit of a boring but a bit of a trickier question. With the introduction of ULI, there are some critics who have said that there's a fear that borrowing could increase. And for the Indian household that is already seeing increased consumption over the last few years, what does it look like when borrowing becomes super easy? Are you essentially looking at millions of people slowly going into debt? And I just want to ask you, though it is a more serious question, and though on TPC we tend to deal with the individual, but I do want to ask you, do you see that being a larger ramification at all?
Look, there are always going to be risks. It's a very pertinent question. Is there a risk that indebtedness will increase? Household savings in India are at a 47-year low currently. So that risk definitely exists. However, the greater good here is the access to credit, the democratization of access to credit, right? For every one person who's maybe on the verge of greater indebtedness, there are perhaps 10 entities out there for whom access to credit would greatly increase their income streams, would greatly increase the size of their business, would greatly increase the access to the kind of markets that they're looking for access to. So while what is being built here is essentially a digital public infrastructure, the guardrails for the final consumer will probably have to be built on the consumer platforms. So yes, you will see some predatory entities trying to get access to get credit to the people who don't have the ability to pay to make a quick buck, for a quick valuation jump. But there will be guidelines around this, and as all of this evolves, there will be guidelines from the RBI, from NPCI, from the government around to whom you can and lend and who can lend this, right? So the question is, in the big scheme of things, the way we look at it is that the lender of choice for Indians thus far have been their banks. And these are largely the public sector banks. But for public sector banks to be able to make more robust decisions, they need much more data, and they need this data at a much lower cost. And the only way to do this is twofold. One is to open up new data streams, and two, to make all of this data accessible via digital APIs. That way, the cost of making a lending decision goes down considerably, the speed goes up, and therefore the ability to process more applications, give to more people goes up. That's what's happening under the ULI. Does it come with concomitant risks? Absolutely. Those risks will have to be regulated again. There will need to be some self-regulation. There will need to be some RBI-led regulation.
Okay, right. Right. Gaurav is back with us, and hopefully with a better audio this time around. Gaurav, go ahead. You were making a point, but largely I want to understand this. Are banks on board with this? There are two aspects to this entire ULI story, right? There is one, the tech behind it, right? Like how this is going to work. And the other is the consumer angle on how it's going to actually work for banks when it comes to lending and their own NPAs. On the side of the banks, because the tech is very complicated, on the side of actually lending it, where do you see this going, and which are going to be the big unlock areas with ULI?
See, what I believe is through ULI, government want to fix the gap between the urban and the rural reachability of the lending segment. So yes, absolutely. With the ease of having more access to the funds, risk comes, and moreover, when we talk about the rural segment of the India, we believe that there is need of this lending reachability of the by the government or by the private lenders. So yes, ULI is gonna be a great turnaround in this lending sector, and this gap has to be filled not only by the government but with the partnerships of private players as well. And as far as this you say risk of spending is concerned, yes, it is, but we, being the lenders, are equally responsible to financially literate for the responsible spending and to the people. And of course, we need to take some steps in take care of their financial inclusion as well as financial literacy with respect to responsible spending.
Okay, Gaurav, thank you for bringing us that context. We'll ask all three of you to stay with us. We're just going to cut very quickly to live visuals we've got coming in right now. The Prime Minister, as we speak, in Singapore. Sonal, let's just take a look.
Excellency, सिंगापुर केवल एक पार्टनर देश नहीं है। सिंगापुर हर विकासशील देश के लिए एक प्रेरणा है। हम भी भारत में अनेकों सिंगापुर बनाना चाहते हैं और मुझे खुशी है कि हम इस दिशा में मिलकर प्रयास कर रहे हैं। हमारे बीच जो मिनिस्टरियल राउंड टेबल बनी है वो एक पाथ ब्रेकिंग मैकेनिज्म है। स्किलिंग, डिजिटलाइजेशन, मोबिलिटी, एडवांस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग जैसे सेमीकंडक्टर और एआई, हेल्थ केयर, सस्टेनेबिलिटी और साइबर सिक्योरिटी जैसे क्षेत्रों में सहयोग की दिशा में ये इनिशिएटिव की पहचान बन गई है। एक्सेलेंसी,
No, we would have. Minister over there in Singapore. He's in the Southeast Asian country at the invitation of his Singaporean counterpart. Let's just go back to our guest. On the right side, though, you could see S. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister. It's a bilateral. Let's just take our audiences back from that, though, into our first story that we were discussing right now with multiple guests. We'll just go back to them to understand a little bit more about the story we were looking at, which is, of course, the Unified Lending Interface and its introduction. Let's go over to Ankush. He's one of the three guests who are with us right now, Ankush Sabarwal. Ankush, can you just tell our audiences, with UPI, let's go back to 2016 in April when the idea was first introduced and, you know, the entire country was taking to it. It took a while for it to come into common usage, especially for retailers to start using, especially the introduction of QR, making it something that could become a very common feature that you saw everywhere. Just like that, tell us, with something like this too, should we wait a few years, especially because 2016, it's taken, 8 years now for us to see it used everywhere. Should we wait a few years to see its success? How do you say our audiences should analyze the way ULI is taken to over the next few years?
Yeah, you see, we have seen huge success in, right? I think this has now being considered as a tool which other countries are also trying to adopt for peer-to-peer payments and also to merchants. Most of our interfaces again are in English and now, yes, few regional languages. And when we know in India, only 10% people understand English. I'm not saying they speak English. They understand English, and Hindi again is not all over. Around 45% people know Hindi, and still there is around 45-50% which people understand other languages. And you see, still we have a certain percentage of illiteracy as well in India. And say whenever we launch a product, yes, a few tech-savvy folks, people in probably the privileged class, knowing English, they adopt first, and then probably people with awareness in Hindi, they adopt. And how about people who probably cannot read, write, but they can speak? Everyone at least can speak one language. So now, if we provide these interfaces with the natural means, say voice in this case, in all the possible languages, adoption would eventually increase. All right. So we should not be, though UPI is very, very simple, that's why we have seen huge adoption, but still there is around a billion users. There are around billion users who have not used UPI yet. Right. So with this kind of lingual approach, voice, I think adoption would increase.
Yeah. Let me bring in Rajat at this point. Rajat, I just want to understand this. At the FinTech Summit, when all of you guys were discussing all of this, I'm sure this was the topic of discussion. How gung-ho are private banks about ULI? But because like I said, these are largely the government means it for credit-hungry sectors, agriculture, etc. Not particularly an area where we see private sector go very gung-ho.
Good question. I think you have to examine some of the reasons why private sector banks haven't been gung-ho about lending in these areas, right? The ability to not have visibility on data, the ability to not know the actual creditworthiness and simply not what's reflected by the paperwork that the applicant is able to submit has always been a deterrent for the private banks. It's been easier to service the kind of audience that we have, say, here, who are able to produce a lot more data about themselves to make those credit decisions. I suspect what's going to happen is, and again, I'm not 100% sure of how this will play out, but the more and more data we're able to digitize, the more infrastructure that's laid down for making this data accessible to any credit issuer, the easier it's going to be for anyone doing the lending to be able to make better decisions. Will the private banks be the leaders in this? I don't know. I suspect some of them will be. Some of them have been aggressive in all of the new digital initiatives that NPCI, the government and the RBI have been launching. And it is from their data that a lot more banks and other lenders are going to be inspired to participate in the system.
Right.
Okay, let's just ask Gaurav, who's with us. Gaurav, your firm is focused on, one of the things your firm is focused on is cybersecurity. And I just want to ask two questions to you, wrapped in one almost. A, will ULI be taking more information than UPI did? One would assume it is because these are loans, but just tell us A. And B, then does that increase the fear of data breaches potentially taking place? What is the government doing to look out for that?
If there is more data, then there is more risk of breaching that data security. Government is bringing these data security bills, and we as a private player are adhered to follow those bills as well, and we have to make every suitable step at every transition to make sure of the data security. Since this data is a highly fragile data with respect to their private KYCs, with respect to their assets, with respect to borrowers' personal finances. So yes, this data is really risky if it is breached, but definitely we as a private player need to implement all the suitable checks at every transition, at every transmission of data from one level to another. And of course, we need to comply with the government regulations. Government is bringing these data security bills, and every day there are some changes in the upgradation of the regulations by the government. Yes, this is definitely important to take care of this data.
I see. I believe we have last few minutes on the show, so I want to quickly just go around the panel once here. Then is it fair to say, and Gaurav, let's start with you. Sorry, Ankush, let's start with you. Do you think ULI will have as big an impact as UPI did in not just India but across the globe? And married to that is a question, if not then when you guys were together in that FinTech Summit that everybody is talking about, what was the next big UPI idea being discussed?
I think when we talk to the leaders in this space, we are asked to spend 1 hour a day in lending, democratizing lending. So think how lending can be big thing, or it can be easily accessible, because there is money and there are people who need money. And when the NPCI has already done disruption in payment, so why not lending? I would not be able to answer, but lot more innovation can happen in this space, which will help society at large soon.
That answers. Okay, Toya, you want to take...
Should we go to our other two panelists though to hear what they have to say on that question? Rajat, we'll come to you.
Thanks. Will this be a game changer? Absolutely. Will this be bigger than UPI? It's very hard to compare. I think UPI sort of introduced people to digital and digital transactions. So I don't know if it's going to be that big, but it is going to be game changing. But if you ask me what was the one other thing that everybody was talking about at the time, it's been something that's been in the works for about as long, perhaps even longer than ULI, which was the business to business payments, invoicing and settlement via the BBPS Bharat Connect system. Because that, to me, while it may not seem very visible all the time, I think it'll be one of the fundamental pillars that powers ULI, especially for businesses. So for MSMEs to be able to do borrowing scale, B2B is what powers it.
Nice. Gaurav?
Yeah, definitely ULI gonna be a game changer according to me. And once we talk about the lending, it should not be only restricted to the MSME or big players. It should be for the farmers. It should be for the even small businessman who is running their own small shop in the rural areas. So yes, definitely I believe that ULI gonna be a game changer. But definitely private players has to join hands with the government to make it a big success.
Okay, Gaurav, thank you for bringing us that context. Rajat, Ankush, it's been a joy to have all three of you on the panel this morning to bring us context into how ULI could potentially be a revolution like UPI, which we saw a few years ago. We hope that's given you some context.
But too early to say, no? Too early to say, to understand where this is going as well, which is quite exciting in some way. But I was almost hoping for them to give us a story for the next episode. Tell us, okay, this is the next big revolution.
That you should be looking
what
at.
we not need to do. But enough about that. Let's move across now and bring you stories from India and across the globe. Singer and actor Lady Gaga dazzled on the Venice red carpet on Wednesday ahead of the Joker premiere. Gaga wore a black gown embellished with a sparkly lace and also a headpiece by designer Philip Treacy. She was accompanied by co-star Phoenix and the film's director Todd Phillips for the much anticipated sequel of the acclaimed 2019 movie Joker.
Singer and musician Elton John has revealed that he has been left with limited vision in one eye following a severe eye infection. In a statement that he posted on Instagram, the singer said that he is healing. He felt positive about the progress that he'd made in his recovery over the summer. The statement comes after he announced his new film, Elton John Never Too Late, which is due to have its European premiere at this year's BFI Film Festival in London.
The 49th Toronto International Film Festival opens this week with the lineup of more than 100 films and television series and a host of celebrities gracing the red carpet. The 11-day event opens up on the 5th of September, that's today, with the world premiere of Nutcrackers, directed by David Gordon Green, starring Ben Stiller as a Chicago real estate developer forced to take in his awful nephews. The closing film is on the 15th. It features Rebel Wilson's directorial debut, The Deb, a musical comedy about cousins who take part in debutante ball in an Australian country town.
And this next one's a fun one. The Berlin specialty dish currywurst is turning 75. The dish is essentially sliced sausage topped with ketchup and curry powder. It took off after the end of World War II when food was scarce. The dish's origin remains disputed. One plaque in the German capital says it was invented in West Berlin in particular in 1949.
Ukrainian Fashion Week takes place for the first time since Russia's full-scale invasion. The theme of the war was reflected through the internal component, that is, we showed the pain of people as well, the pain of women, because of the collection that came out as local designers presented their latest Spring-Summer 2025 collection. Some of that shared how war influenced their fashion creations.
And President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukraine needed new energy. He's ordered a major government reshuffle at a crucial juncture in the continuing war against Russia. We'll bring you more details on that, but the reshuffle led to the resignation of the foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba. That's the highest or the biggest change we've seen.
Coca-Cola opens up a new tab and rival PepsiCo opens a new tab, spent hundreds of millions of dollars over decades building demand for their soft drinks in the Muslim majority country, including Egypt to Pakistan. Now both face a challenge from local sodas in their countries due to consumer boycotts that target the globe-straddling brands as symbols of America and an extension of Israel at a time of war in Gaza.
Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, which have spent years and millions of dollars building up demand for their drinks in Muslim-majority countries, are now facing a challenge. As the war rages in Gaza, more active consumers in these countries are boycotting brands that represent the United States, a strong supporter of Israel. In Egypt, local cola brand V7 exported 3 times as many bottles as last year, while sales of Coke plummeted. In the 6 months following the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel that triggered the invasion of Gaza, Pepsi said its drink volumes in Africa, the Middle East and South Asia division barely grew. That's after notching up 8% and 15% growth in the same quarters a year previous. Data showed that volumes of Coke sold in Egypt declined by double-digit percentage points in the 6 months ended June the 28th. In the same time period last year, volumes were up in the high single digits. Coca-Cola has said it does not fund military operations in Israel or any country. PepsiCo said neither the company, quote, nor any of our brands are affiliated with any government or military in the conflict.
Okay, now let's take you to some very, very exciting updates that the country's been following, all taking place at the Paris Paralympics 2024. India's jumped up to the 13th place in the medal tally, 24 medals at the end of day 7. India got 5 golds, 9 silver and 10 bronze medals. But let's take a deeper dive into our individual performances right now. First, of course, you've got India's para archer. We're showing him to you on your screens right now. Harvinder Singh creating history by winning the first ever Paralympics gold in the discipline for the nation. He defeated a Poland player in a one-sided finale, and this was Harvinder's second Paralympics medal. He actually won bronze back in Tokyo in 2021.
Also, it was a memorable day for India as Dharamveer won the gold medal in men's club throw of F51 with a new Asian record altogether. The gold medal that Dharamveer won was also India's first medal in club throw in the history of the quadrennial sporting spectacle. Dharamveer bettered his effort from Tokyo as well in the Paralympics there in 2021 and became the 5th Indian to have won gold at the event.
And with double podium finish, Pranav Surma, he's a 29-year-old from Faridabad, he secured the silver medal with a throw of 34.59 meters in his very first attempt. He dominated the men's F51 event at the Paralympics. He was the gold medalist back in the 2022 Asian Games.
Also, world champion sprinter Deepti Jivanji added the 24th medal to the Indian tally. The 20-year-old clinched a bronze medal in the women's 400 meters event. Deepti made history by becoming the first intellectually impaired Indian athlete to win a Paralympic medal.
And we're shifting focus from all of India's wins to something entirely different after the break. We're going to be celebrating National Nutrition Week, and today we're looking at how you can enhance your gut health. So it feels like there's more that you can do to keep yourself healthy. If there's a pain, irritation in your gut that you see in your skin, in other areas, you can get to know what you can do. Power up with our nutrition breakdown after the break.
Delhi. The hijackers, identified as members of the Pakistan-based terrorist outfit Harkat-ul-Mujahideen, had diverted the plane to Kandahar in Afghanistan that was then under the control of the Taliban. The crisis, which lasted 8 long days, during which these terrorists demanded the release of 3 high-profile militants, Maulana Masood Azhar, Ahmad Omar Saeed Sheikh and Mushtaq Ahmad Zarkar. The Indian government, under immense pressure to save the lives of hostages, ultimately agreed to release those 3 militants. Former External Affairs Minister Jaswant Singh, in fact, had personally escorted the terrorists to Kandahar, a move that still remains, to date, the most controversial. So what is the IC-814 row all about? It's a series that has been released on Netflix, and it's based on the real-life hijacking in 1999. And this series chronicles the horrific experience of the passengers and the crew members and the challenges that they faced by the government as their flight was diverted to multiple locations before finally ending up in Taliban-controlled Kandahar in Afghanistan. The hijackers in this series are depicted with the code names Chief, Doctor, Burger, Bhola and Shankar. However, it's the use of the names Bhola and Shankar that hasn't really gone down well with the viewers, which has now triggered this massive controversy. In fact, they contend that the show should have highlighted the fact that the hijackers were 5 Muslim terrorists, and 2 of them in fact had used Hindu aliases. Netizens have accused the filmmaker Anubhav Sinha of deliberately distorting facts and has even labelled his work as propaganda. Now, several top BJP leaders have also raised objections and questions to the portrayal of events in this series. BJP IT cell chief Amit Malviya has said that the hijackers were dreaded terrorists who acquired aliases to hide their Muslim identities. He in fact posted on the social media platform X saying, and I quote, "Filmmaker Anubhav Sinha legitimized their criminal intent by furthering their non-Muslim names. Decades later, people will think Hindus had hijacked IC-814. Well, joining him was former Union Minister and BJP leader Rajiv Chandrasekhar.
I vividly remember IC-814. I was very aware of that accident and very involved in following that. Every man and woman in India and indeed in South Asia knows that hijack of IC-814 from Kathmandu was committed, that act was committed by Pakistan's ISI-backed terrorists. Now, nobody thinks that there were some people from India who did the hijacking. So how the people have Hindu names in that movie, I don't know. But I'm very, very happy that the INV Ministry and the Government of India has taken cognizance of this and has summoned Netflix.
Well, there was stiff opposition and criticism to the depiction of these terrorists in a softer light and humanizing them as well. The series is adapted from the book Flight into Fear, the Captain's Story, that has been written by journalists Srinjoy Chaudhary and Devi Sharan, the captain of the hijacked flight. This series stars Vijay Varma, Nasiruddin Shah, Pankaj Kapoor, Manoj Pava, Arvind Swamy, Anupam Tripathi, Dia Mirza, Patra Lekha, Amrita Puri, Divyanu Bhattacharya and Kumud Mishra in key and very significant roles. Amid the growing controversy, the government has taken note of this public outcry. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has now summoned Monica Shergill, who is the content head of Netflix India, to address this matter. The ministry has also told Netflix to keep religious sentiments in mind. Netflix team has assured that content will now be reviewed and in future content on platforms will be in acceptance with sentiments of our nation. Netflix has also assured that all security concerns will be addressed in the future as well. They will also review all the content and will revert at the earliest. According to sources, while the government has no immediate plans to ban the series, officials from Netflix, its content head, have been now asked to find a way to resolve this controversy. The ministry is also likely to summon the filmmaker Anubhav Sinha, who is the maker of the series. For now, Netflix has given full assurance to be mindful of national security and children's sensitivity while putting out content on the OTT platform in the future.
Welcome back. You're watching The Breakfast Club, and we're taking you now to something very different from what we were discussing before. It's day 5 of the National Nutrition Week, and today, right here on the show, we're focusing on gut health and its impact on overall wellness. Is eating food at a particular time daily important? Could it result in a happy gut? What is the symbiotic relationship, because we call it symbiotic, but between us and the different kinds of microorganisms that you find in your gut?
And there are millions of them. We're looking at gut being as important as keeping ourselves in shape. Next, we'll also be sort of tossing and turning around in bed. Remember, sleep deprivation, enemy of a healthy gut as well. So if you thought that agar neend nahi aa rahi, it's got to do with your mental status, it could actually do a lot with how your gut is feeling. Foods, to detox diets, to what quantity of carbs is right for your body. All of that is what we look at.
We'll also look to understand whether an all-vegetarian diet could be the answer. Could lower levels of gut inflammation then take place? We'll also look to understand different types of stress management practices. What does meditation, deep breathing have to do with your gut? We'll get to know that. We'll also see how gut health in its entirety can be looked after.
All right, so the relationship between stress, diet, gut, your brain, all of that is a beautiful symphony, and to decode that with us, we've got a guest on the program. Kavita Devan is a nutritionist, also an author. She joins us on the program. Hi Kavita, good morning. Good to have you back on TVC. Want to first understand this, so much has been said about gut being your second brain, about gut biome, how rich it is really defines what your mood will be like, the whole gut feeling coming from actually the gut. So just give us the basics here. What is the gut doing to your brain, and what signals is it sending when?
Good morning. So the first question I usually ask all my clients is, are you having a good morning? Is your gut happy? Because only then you would have a good morning. It's that important, literally. Because the only thing, literally, Sonal, that I think modern medicine and Ayurveda, convene on right from the outset is the fact that gut is the seat of our health. Ayurveda has been saying that forever, we know that. Hippocrates, the scientist who's considered to be the father of modern medicine, said the same. So absolutely, it's non-negotiable, your gut's health. That said, the important thing is that what you eat doesn't affect just your gut. That is something everyone needs to understand. Your gut decides the health of your entire body. So whether we are talking about your brain's health, your mood, like you mentioned, or we are talking about our skin, the glow of our skin, it goes to that extent. So the bacteria, the millions of them, which you mentioned, which populate our gut, are the boss, literally. So you keep them happy and they keep your health happy. So your longevity, your immunity, your brain's health, your heart's health, avoidance of autoimmune disorders, skin disorders, literally you name it. And if you can take care of your gut, you can probably prevent and also help sort them out. It's that important. So those bacteria are calling the shots.
So Kavita, tell us, if our audiences are watching right now and they're wondering, do I have a healthy gut or not? Is the clearest indicator just, whether you're passing stool regularly at the same time every single day? Is that the clearest indicator? Are there other things we should be looking out for?
So it begins with that. Your gut, of course, gives you symptoms and signals. So heartburn, acidity, indigestion, food allergies developing. So it just keeps going one step up the other. You don't listen to the first signal, the second one will come. You don't listen to the second one, the third one will come. And then, like I mentioned, all the chronic disorders are also symptoms gone wrong. Literally, if you keep ignoring it for some time, then, or if you try to do band-aids, like, pop a antacid or a antacid in the morning every day and hope that everything is sorted, then over the time, these symptoms will be like a domino effect, right? They'll keep collecting, and it'll lead to whatever is weakest in your body. So your thyroid is the weakest, maybe that will get affected first. Insomnia could be a symptom. So there are different symptoms in different people depending on the state of their body. So whichever is the weakest link will fall first.
Got it. But Kavita, isn't your gut biome also constantly sort of getting populated and repopulated, getting more diverse, then sort of, it's an ever evolving thing, right? So there's no one set of food that you eat which is right for your gut. Everybody keeps talking about how diversifying your exposure to different kind of food is really what keeps the boss in the tummy, like you said, really happy. So how does one go about that? And are there specific foods that lead to increasing the flora in your gut?
So your bacteria reflect what you eat. So every bite you take, you need to really consider that it's going straight to your stomach and it's going to change your microbiota. Which is why it's really important to eat a diverse diet, and the biggest rule of eating right is eating variety. Which is why fat diets are the worst for your microbiota, literally. So that is how it works, the connection. You need to eat a varied diet. You need to eat a little bit of everything. Because if you stop eating something for the longest time, those bacteria would die. And trying to populate them back is a task.
Yeah.
So eating a bit of everything is the solution. But at the same time, we live in very toxic, very, very toxic times. It's not just the food. It's also the quality of food we are eating. It's also the pollution. It's also the stress levels. All of these also affect the gut bacteria. So you could be eating the best of the diets, but if you're not sleeping well, like you mentioned, or if you're way too stressed because of whatever reasons, personal, professional, then too, the good bacteria die. So the whole story is to make sure that we will always have good and bad bacteria in our stomach. To hope for anything otherwise is not possible, right? We just make good bacteria more and bad bacteria less. So there are ways to do that. And today, unfortunately, we need to weave them back. Earlier in our traditional diets, those ways were already entrenched. They were not explained to them, but people were following common sense, following those rules. So it was taking care of their gut. But today, we just need to, I feel, bring it back in our diet and lifestyle. So lifestyle has a huge role to play so that the gut population is happy on a daily basis.
Kavita, thank you for breaking that down for us. I hope our audiences were also looking at the do's and don'ts we've got up for you there on the screen. Kavita, thank you. I hope our audiences take this ahead. We hope you have a happy gut. Let's take you now to something entirely different though. One more topic change entirely. Today is Teachers' Day across India, and it's a day on which we take out a little time to celebrate, to honor, even just remember the different teachers and gurus that had a lasting impact on your life with their life lessons. Sonal, who's a teacher who had a lasting impact on you?
Lots of them that I can remember on top of my head. But Teachers' Day, like we were discussing earlier, not just about teachers in the classroom, about teachers in life. And I don't know, I keep going back to my dad being the biggest teacher that I know in my life. So I think that's pretty much it, right? And also, but when you look at the entire impact of Teachers' Day, everybody has their own story. But what is the story behind this day? And why do we celebrate it on the 5th of September? The day that traces back to the birthday of one of India's most respected scholars and philosophers, Dr. Radak Krishnan, who was also the country's second president. What was his legacy? Why is he linked to this day? This is a report which will answer all those questions.
Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan was not just an educator. He was a visionary who saw education as a powerful tool for societal transformation. Born on September 5th, 1888, in a small village in the erstwhile Madras Presidency, Radhakrishnan's journey from modest beginnings to becoming the second President of India is a testament to his profound intellect and unwavering dedication to learning. He was a distinguished scholar of Hindu philosophy, particularly the Advaita Vedanta tradition. What sets Radhakrishnan apart is his unique ability to bridge Eastern and Western philosophies, creating a dialogue between the two. His commentaries on the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahma Sutra are not mere academic treatises, but explorations of the deepest metaphysical questions. At the core of Radhakrishnan's thought was the concept of Advaita, or non-duality, which posits that the ultimate reality, which is Brahman, is indivisible and beyond all distinctions. For Radhakrishnan, Brahman was not just an abstract principle, but the very essence of the self, the Atman. This metaphysical idealism didn't really negate the reality of the world. Instead, he viewed the world as a manifestation of the absolute, albeit not the ultimate reality itself. What makes Radhakrishnan's philosophy particularly relevant to Teachers' Day is his belief in the transformative power of education. He saw education as a means to develop the intuition, a profound form of experience that transcends mere intellectual understanding. Intuition, in Radhakrishnan's view, is the highest form of knowledge, a direct, self-evident awareness of the divine that goes beyond the limits of language and thought. By advocating for the significance of intuition in education, Radhakrishnan emphasized that true learning is not just about acquiring information, but about awakening the inner spirit, aligning the self with the universal truth. And this is the essence of what we celebrate on Teachers' Day. The role of teachers in guiding us not just through the academic curriculum, but through the journey of self-realization. When students and friends wished to celebrate his birthday in 1962, Dr. Radhakrishnan had humbly proposed that this day be observed as Teachers' Day instead, paying tribute to all the teachers who, in his words, built the character of the nation. This decision encapsulates his deep respect for the teaching profession, for education, and his recognition of the profound impact that educators have on our society.
Next, we bring you a special segment on the financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's start with markets and how they're pegged to open this morning. GIFT Nifty indicates a positive start for the Indian equities after several days. Asian markets rebound and open in the green, except in Japan. Global markets include the US were range-bound and as they await labour market data and comments from the Federal Reserve as well. Crude oil prices, meanwhile, hold on in spite of weak demands in the outlook.
And let's take a look at a sector in particular. India's power demand has seen a steady acceleration. This is having a positive rub-off on trading volumes in the energy exchanges. The volume jump is largely on account of renewables. And is a new dawn likely for the business? That obviously remains the key question. You can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about India's power sector and various other actionable insights on markets. It's the premier destination for all the investing views and financial insights that you're ever going to need, brought to you by Money Control.
All right, on that note, as we draw this show to a close, let's also bring you a quick programming note. You can visit news18.com for the latest breaking news with up-to-date coverage on India, world, business, entertainment and cricket. News18.com, India's leading news website, combines accurate reporting with in-depth analysis, ensuring that readers stay informed on critical developments.
सर आप बहुत
Netflix's latest web series and filmmaker Anubhav Sinha's IC814, The Kandahar Hijack, has sparked a massive controversy. Using hashtags boycott Netflix, boycott Bollywood and IC814, many ex-users have shared posts claiming that the makers changed the names of the hijackers to Shankar and Bhola to allegedly protect the terrorists who belong to a certain community. This series on the 1999 hijacking of an Indian